I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember this moment. In 4 years, if we get another chance at having a presidential election and somebody's like, well, we need to have somebody electable. I want you to remember. I want you to burn this in your memory. That Joe Biden, who was supposedly going to put the end to Trumpism, who's the safe pick, was utterly humiliated because he didn't do anything. And Americans want change. God damn it, they want change, and they want it now. Who has the best live coverage? Who should we cover this? Who should we watch?
A president saying the era of big government is over. Who was that again?
Yes.
A Democratic president who said that. And so it has been popular by both presidents to say it is time to shrink the federal government. I think overwhelmingly the American people, the taxpayers, would like a more efficient
what a
government.
surprise.
No one would object to a more efficient DMV.
And not all that unique.
You know, what's the record of America since Bill Clinton? Collapse. The end of the era of big government has led directly to the collapse of America. American infrastructure destroyed, American manufacturing destroyed, income inequality skyrocketing, racial tension is now spiking again. We have immigration problems because of what? Our warmongering foreign policy. Why are there millions of migrants fleeing to this country? Because we're sanctioning Venezuela. Why? We want to steal their oil. We are sanctioning Cuba. Why? Because they threw out slave corporations 70 fucking years ago. And we don't want any country to resist America. If you resist America, no matter how righteous you are, no matter how correct you are, America will make it their mission to destroy your nation. We are Satan incarnate. And until we do something about every single person you see on the fucking screen is a problem.
Now, everybody's been talking about history today. So let me put that in context. Donald Trump's optimism number is higher than the last time that he took office. Maybe no surprise there. More people voted for him this time, right? But you also see when you compare it to CBS News polling over the years for past presidents, there were higher numbers. There were 79 for Obama, 68 for...
More people are optimistic for Donald Trump than Joe Biden. More people are optimistic for Donald Trump than they were for Joe Biden. This is a complete and utter refutation of Joe Biden, of centrist Democrats. We were told the fever would break, and the fever has intensified. At a certain point, you need to start trying a different treatment.
George H.W. Bush. The reason for that is the partisan era that we live in. There are Democrats optimistic about incoming President Trump, but there are also a lot of Democrats who say that they're demoralized, who say that they're pessimistic. So that's a reflection of more recent times and that partisan era.
I wouldn't want 60% on a test, but when you look at that, optimism for the next 4 years, considering what we've been through as a country, why are they so optimistic?
That is the key question. And the answer is the economy, Gail. Let me show you this. One of the big reasons, if not the big reason, that Donald Trump won was Americans' dissatisfaction with what they said was a bad economy and also specifically about prices, inflation. Well, look at this. Especially for Trump voters, they expect now his policies to bring down grocery prices. We all know presidents don't have magic wands to do that. President Biden found that out, right? But at the same time, this really sets up a key metric for what we watch going forward. And then I'll also show you this. You've got the expectations for the U.S. economy. Right now, as I said, they rate it as bad. But when we ask them, what do you expect for 2025? It's that the economy will be good. So that's really the first thing, and voters tell us this, that's the first thing they want the new president to address.
And then, Anthony, what about immigration?
Yeah, this is also interesting because all through the campaign, we saw that there was support for things like deportation, and that's still the case among all Americans. You see approval of the idea, in principle, of starting a program to deport immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally. And then I've got to point out, among Trump voters, that goes up to a whopping 90%. So you talk about these executive orders, you talk about these policies that we report he's going to try to implement. This is one that definitely plays to his base. But I should add, when you probe a little deeper and ask people, well, how should this be carried out, things get more mixed. Not necessarily, folks say, using the U.S. military to do that, maybe using current law enforcement. And of course, there's a lot of details in this. This is one of the things we're going to...
I just want to say that the reason why there is 55-45 is because Democrats have begun to waffle on this. So it's the Democrat number that went around from around 10% to around 35%. And that's right there, ladies and gentlemen, where the support for this more harsh immigration policy comes from. But I just saw a poll the other day which showed that when you actually ask Americans about how we would do such a thing, there is massive majority opposition to any policy that Donald Trump would implement against immigrants. But here's the thing that you need to understand. And here's something that I want you to understand, which is that the American state is the largest organization in the world. It has more resources and more power than any organization in the world. And if you give the American state into the hands of a malign actor, it can move mountains. And that's exactly what we've done. And the Democratic Party and the liberals saying the government can't do anything, that's against norms. I want you to understand something. People have called norms a rule book, but they aren't a rule book. They aren't even a rule book. There's no laws. There's no enforcement. Norms are just expectations of behavior. I'll give you an example of a norm. You go to a diner and you start eating your pancakes with a spoon. That's a violation of norms. But is it against the law? Is that actually harmful? Democrats are screaming, the Republicans are firing the parliamentarian. That's against the norms. Nobody cares. Ro Khanna is an absolute loser.
Is they related?
It's an excellent point, Major. Thank you so much for pointing that out about the size and scope of the federal workforce and in what states where they are centered. You can now see the first ladies together entering one of the presidential limos to make their way to Capitol Hill.
Biden, folks.
Just want to update you. Just a short time ago, President Biden was asked, "What's your message today?" And he answered and said, "My message is simple. It's hope." And then they asked him, "Did you write a letter?" And he said, "I."
Politics forever.
And then he was asked, "What did you say?" And
nobody's ever going to give a shit what Joe Biden says ever again. Literally. There's never been a man who was less revered in the White House. There's never been a man who had less support than Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a sham. He's a joke. He's the ultimate expression of the hollowing out of the Democratic Party of anything that makes it worthwhile.
Many
Did you say
people
Biden
that
say
are around
welcome
Donald
to Trump? That's
and
what we're
Robert, one
trying
of the things
to
that has
see.
been reported too is that even as they get ready to enter the White House, she's already set out to change some of the things that perhaps hampered.
Right now, and you think it was nearly 10 years ago that Donald Trump came down that golden escalator at Trump Tower, and what has happened in that near decade since? And it was only in late May of this year he was convicted in a New York court. It was only in July he survived an assassination attempt. And now, January 20th, 2025, he's about to be sworn in as the 47th president of the United States. What a political journey.
Legitimately, I just saw a post this morning from Betsy DeVos, and this is, let me see if I could find it. And she said, the time has come, sunset the Department of Education. And my reaction to that is, maybe they should. Not because it's a good policy, but because it'll put America so far behind the Chinese that China will win. And listen, I have no illusions that the Chinese government is going to necessarily be good. But at this point, like, they're graduating like 10 times as many engineers as we are. China graduates between 1.4 million and 1.5 engineering graduates annually. That's about 1/3 of the world's total engineering graduates. They are going to eat our fucking lunch. I don't know if you guys saw, but they're going back to the moon. They have the best space station in space. They've just invested $525 billion in renewable energy. They're the world's leading investors in a 4th generation nuclear and fusion energy. They've built 47,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. 2 weeks ago, they just published that they just showed a prototype train that could go 450 kilometers an hour. They've built 40 metro stations in the last 15 years the size of Boston. It's fucking Jover. They have 240 times the shipbuilding capacity that we do. And Donald Trump is really just, I don't know how else to put it. He is the end of the American empire. He is the Nero, fiddling while it burns. It's just that simple. So yes, it sucks to be an American and see our country being hollowed out for the ridiculous racial theories that white people are better. What the fuck is white? Is a Polish person white? Is an Italian white? Is a Greek white? Is a Lebanese person white? What the fuck is white? Is Irish white? Is Portuguese white? You tell me what the fuck white is. I don't know what the fuck white is. We have the most cockamamie racial theory since Aryanness under the Nazi Party. Are Spanish people white, but Mexicans aren't? There's nothing intelligent in there. And by the way, what are their policies? Let's be honest. Let's examine their policies. Their policies are tax cuts, removing regulation. You like having PFAS in all your fucking food products? Polluted air. We're gonna drill baby drill as California burns down, which is the largest state with the largest economy in the largest state.
Welcome back to CBS News coverage of the inauguration of the 47th president of the United States, Donald Trump. You are watching the motorcade carrying President Joe Biden and
personal handmaid to Israel. Donald Trump is basically on his knees in front of Israel. Pathetic. I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember this moment. In 4 years, if we get another chance at having a presidential election and somebody's like, well, we need to have somebody electable. I want you to remember, I want you to burn this in your memory. That Joe Biden, who was supposedly going to put the end to Trumpism, who's the safe pick, was utterly humiliated because he didn't do anything. And Americans want change. God damn it, they want change, and they want it now. And they're willing to, I mean, a plurality of Americans were willing to give Donald Trump a second chance because they are just so disgusted with the status quo. Do you understand how pathetic this is? Do you understand how this is a complete and utter refutation of centrist Democrats? Like, this is Joe Biden and Donald Trump. I mean, give me a fucking, like, this is an empire falling because the Democrats cannot and will not do anything to help Americans live better lives.